Joining us in studio, it's General Manager and Executive Vice President Nick Caserio. Nick, good to see you. How's it going?
Fellas, good to be here.
All right, with a big Monday nighter coming up at Dallas, a lot to go over with the Detroit game. A lot went right, but obviously you didn't get the result you wanted. What about your thoughts on that evening and moving forward into the Dallas game?
Yeah, like most weeks. So whatever kind of happens in the game, you kind of go back, look at the result, and then you got to flip the page and get ready for the next team, the next opportunity. In the game the other night, did some good things to your point. In the end, just couldn't make enough plays in the end. Detroit made a few more plays. Good football team, took advantage of some opportunities, and, similar to the Green Bay game kind of played out in some respects similar. Had some success defensively, took the ball away a little bit, and ended up losing on a walk-off field goal. So that's the NFL. It's the way it goes sometimes. So the big thing is just going through the game. Went through the game the other day. Coach Ryans went through the game with the team, kind of showed them some of the good, some of the bad, some of the areas we can improve. And then really it's just move forward and get ready for, a good team in the Cowboys, Monday night, altered schedule, those types of things. So that's kind of where we are.
Nick, I know we can't play every game at home, but I kind of wish we did, because when you look at quarterback performances against us at home, it's been it's almost shocking, because if you look at the 5 games that Jared played before the game Sunday night, you're like, holy cow, 80%, 72%, 88%, 100%. The other night, 50% completion percentage and 5 interceptions. I don't know if there's a magic formula to being at home or not, but what is it really about what we're doing that is forcing quarterbacks into such tough times here against us at home?
Playing good team defense. The crowd certainly is a part of that as well. So a really good environment the other night. So we've played, for the most part, over the course of the year, we play pretty good defensively. Taking the ball away, we've disrupted the quarterback. No, we didn't get a lot, and there wasn't any sacks, but we were around the quarterback a bunch, and kind of he was disrupted a little bit. Coverage has been tight, and we've taken the ball away. So overall, we've played pretty good team defense over the course of the year. Certainly had our moments, some games, but overall, we just got to continue to do the things that are conducive to winning, and hopefully we continue that formula here, regardless if we're playing at home or we're on the road.
Yep.
I know you didn't run the ball as well as you wanted to in that game, obviously, but some of the passing plays really worked out well, first half especially. And what other challenges do you have as you get into the Dallas game trying to put everything together?
Yeah, I mean, Detroit did a good job in the running game, kind of crowded the line of scrimmage there a little bit. There was 8, 9 guys around the line of scrimmage at times. So if that's the case, then probably going to open up some opportunities in the passing game. So we had some good plays there. Probably missed some plays as well. But it's just going to be about just each play is going to take on, significance in the course of a game, and just trying to string together positive plays. We just got to eliminate some of the negative plays. John and I talked about this before the game, kind of the first down production. When it was good, it was good. And when it was behind the sticks, we ended up in some longer yardage situations. So we always want to try to stay ahead. If, say, you look at Detroit, it's kind of going back to the defense as well. Like, we had some production on first down. It kind of put them in some less advantageous situations for their offense. So it's just going to be about just consistent performance, trying to have positive plays, trying to have good production on first down, eliminate the negative plays, and then the turnovers, we want to try to eliminate those. I mean, if you don't do anything, the percentage is usually pretty good. If you have no turnovers and you take care of the football, usually correlates to winning. So things are fixable, so we just got to try to make the improvements here as we go.
Your words kept reverberating in my head, like every time that we got behind the sticks on the first down. I was like, dang, Nick, you hit right on it. It's something that Mark and I talk a lot about, like first down. You're going to earn your opportunities to rush quarterback. The flip side is, you don't get anything on first down, all of a sudden you're going to invite their exotic blitzes and their exotic rushes if you get to third down, if you get behind it as well. So I kept thinking about that as we went through. In 2022, you drafted John Mechie, and obviously since John was drafted, he's gone through a lot. But the other night was, I don't want to say his breakout performance, but it was probably his best performance as a player. How rewarding was that to see for John, just going out there and making those plays and that big catch for a touchdown for the half?
Sure, when you really look at the arc of sort of this season, so had a good training camp, had a good preseason, played well. I think it was either the Giants or the Rams. I can't remember which game, but had a lot of production.
Yep.
And then he's actually been open a lot when he's played. And the other night, the ball found him, and he took advantage of some opportunities, made a number of contested catches. But he's had a good attitude. He's worked really hard. I think natural tendency is frustration maybe start to build a little bit because you just want to be able to contribute. But he never lost sight of the ultimate goal, just trying to help the team. And when called upon, he took advantage of opportunity, and he helped us offensively and made a number of plays. Really a credit to him, his attitude. I would say his demeanor, his mindset, and the work that, Coach McDaniels has done with him as well. So hopefully it's a good starting point. But I think when you go back and look, it really started in the spring, carried over into training camp, and then when you carry that over into regular season, now you're starting to see some of the fruits of your labor. Anytime that happens, you're happy for the player, and now you just want to see that continue moving forward.
Nick, I'm going to steal one of Johnny's questions. It's not the scouting report question. It's about rookie DBs. Kalen Bullock, Kamari Lassiter, 7 picks between them. That's the number. What about that? These 2 rookies with that kind of production so far.
Yeah, they've done a nice job for us. So from the beginning of the season, going back kind of like we talked about with Metch, you go back to training camp, you go back and look at some of the spring performance as well. So they've been consistent. They've had a good attitude. They've improved. They've taken the coaching, taken advantage of their opportunities. Kalen has kind of done it since the beginning of the season. We saw it the first game against Indy. I mean, I think he's tied for the league lead among rookies with interceptions with the 4. The safety from St. Louis also has 4. And I think Kamari he leads in pass breakups or is close. So Kalen is a player that showed the propensity to take the ball away at SC, and that's kind of carried over. And then Kamari has been a consistently productive football player, was at Georgia. And we felt when we drafted both of those players that they were going to be able to contribute. So it's a credit to them. It's a credit to the coaches, credit to the work that they've put in. And the work that they've done in practice has carried over into the games, and that's ultimately what you like to see.
Nick, I know when you were in New England, hearing Coach Belichick talk all the time about ignore the noise, block the noise out. It feels like in years that have followed, there's more and more noise all the time, good and bad, but there's just noise. How much more difficult is it to kind of block it out, not listen to what the outside? You remember you said something last week about there's narratives out there. How tough is it to kind of block those noises out, not listen to those narratives that are out about whatever they're saying about the team?
Yeah, depending on who you talk to or who the person is, honestly, has no impact or ramifications on anything that you do as a team. So it's all about the work that you put in, what you do when you come in a building, what goes on the field. Ultimately, you can't control anything that's said outside of the building. So, honestly, the 24 years that I've been in the league, I mean, my philosophy hasn't changed. It's always been the same. It really doesn't matter. So you just try to focus on the things that are important, which is the week of preparation, the practice, understanding the opponent, understanding the team that you're going to play against, hoping you go out there and execute well. And then regardless of what happens on Sunday, you got to turn a page and move on to the next situation. So it depends on who you ask, but for me, it doesn't really have any relevance or ramifications.
It's been your way for a while.
Anything we're doing, So,
well, with no Kenyon on the offensive line, you had to do some juggling there. Juice moves over. We've seen that arrangement before last year down the stretch. And what about that? Because you mentioned they were stacking the box, making it tough to run, but there were some opportunities in the passing game, like you said.
Yeah, those guys did a good job, and I think we've talked those inside positions. Sometimes you have guys that are just guards, sometimes you have guys that are just centers, and then you have guys that potentially could play all 3 spots. So I think in the case of Juice and JP, they can kind of swing back and forth. So we felt that was the best opportunity for us or made the most sense. So we'll kind of see how it is moving forward. Still have some guys in the bullpen here that if they had to go in there and play, could play. Made some acquisitions over the course of the last week or two. And maybe there's some players that potentially put themselves in position to have an opportunity. But overall, the communication was pretty solid. Pass protection was pretty clean for the most part. I mean, they got us a few times. We had a couple missed assignments, things that are very fixable. But overall, those guys are smart guys that went in there and gave us a chance to kind of operate cleanly and operate the offense.
I'm not going to ask you about the red jerseys. We're going to put the Lions game behind us. And now we start talking about Dallas Cowboys. And I think for people in Houston, this one means a lot. And they follow the Cowboys, so they know a lot of the names. Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, CeeDee's from Richmond, Texas, where I'm from. So good football players come out of that city.
Good place to start.
Yeah. But there's no Dak Prescott. There is a Cooper Rush. What can you tell us and give us the scouting report on the Cowboys, Nick?
Yeah, so I'd say since we played them in 22. If the team, there's some carryover, but there are also a lot of differences. So they've had to deal with some injuries. They've had some guys that have been in and out. But I'd say overall, they have a lot of explosive players that can really impact the game in a significant way. I mean, offensively, really everything starts with CD. The thing about him, they just move him across the formation. So he plays in the perimeter, he plays inside the formation. He was among the most highly targeted receivers last year. I want to say it was like over 180 targets. This year, it's probably close to 100. Very productive player. He was rewarded with a contract extension in the offseason, and rightfully so. So everything in the passing game kind of goes through CD. Cooks has kind of been in and out, was there early, he's been out a little bit, and I think they've seen the emergence of Jalen Tolbert. You know, they drafted. I'm sure you have Senior Bowl notes on him from a few years ago. So he's made a positive impact. And a player that's really been a kind of a steadying presence all the way through has been Ferguson. So been very productive, very instinctive, really good hands, kind of move the chains. And then they're kind of using multiple backs. Dowdle's giving them some production. They got Zeke's giving them some production. And on the offensive line, they've really heavily invested in the offensive line. You have 3 or 4 first-round picks. Guyton, first-round pick, playing left tackle. BB, third-round pick, is actually playing center. Tyler Smith, the kid from Tulsa, has kind of played tackle, has played guard. You know, Zach's been there kind of for ages, but Zach's been as good a football player as any in the league. And they've really gotten a lot of good production out of Steele, who wasn't drafted. You know, here's a guy who started at right tackle. So offensively, they got some explosive players, and then Rush, you know, kind of was forced into action there last week, but they've, you know, I think they're 5-2 with him as a starter. So smart guy, understands where to go with the football, very efficient. So, you know, we're expecting them to improve on some of the things they did last week. And then defensively, I mean, starts with 11. I mean, he really is one player, but he might as well count for 3 players because he impacts the game wherever he is. So whether he lines up on the edge, whether he lines up inside, there are times he's really unblockable. He's one of the best players in the league, you know, for a reason. And then they got a bunch of big guys inside. Mozzie Smith, who's a good run defender. They've been without Lawrence there a little bit, so they've kind of had a mix and match a little bit. But the 2 guys inside, they signed Kendricks, you know, in the offseason, who has experience in Coach Zimmer's system. And then Overshone has really been a really good football player this year. Was hurt last year. I'm sure you got some notes on him as well when he was coming out, but big, long, athletic, fast, tough. And then Trayvon Diggs is taking the ball away from, you know, a number of teams over the course of his career. They're probably going to get Bland back, who arguably was the best corner in the league last year, as productive on the ball as anybody. Good slot corner in Lewis. And then Wilson, very active and productive near the line of scrimmage, so between him and Hooker. So they got some explosive players on defense. You know, Coach Zimmer does a good job with his scheme, presents some problems. And in the kicking game, you got one of the best place kickers. And then Bones does a good job just overall, the overall composition of the special teams unit. So a lot of good football players, pretty explosive. And then when you add Turpin in there as a returner / offensive player, man, this guy's fast as hell. So we're going to have to make sure we cover the field. And, you know, with that, we're in good position to tackle him. So good football team. They got enough good players. They've been they've been competitive in some games they haven't been as competitive, but, you know, we're expecting them to be ready to go here Monday night. So we're going to have to play good football in order to come out, you know, with a win.
Nick, this fascinates me because sometimes people from the outside look at a team struggling and say, oh, you should go up there and whatever, right? But I think there's no better example than maybe the 2022 Texans, who went up there having a tough season, record-wise, of course, but right in the game at the end, you got first and goal, unable to get it in, but the Cowboys came back the other way. But such a close game. Then you had the really close game with the Chiefs. You never know what's going to happen in this league.
Yeah, Schultz made a number of catches on that 2 minutes
at
the end of the game. So that's the NFL. It's really about what do you do that week, and the team that executes the best is going to give themselves an opportunity to win. So everybody has the same. You look around the league, I don't know how many one-score games there were last week. I want to say it was, 8 or 9 or 10. It seems like every week those games come down to a handful of plays in each game. So if you make them, you're going to be a good spot. If you don't, you're not. So not to like oversimplify it, but that's the reality of the league each week. And I'd say those couple games that you alluded to, Mark, are good examples. So I think the expectation is you're going to prepare for that team to be ready to go and they play their best football. And it's going to be about your execution and doing the right things that are conducive to winning.
Nick, you know as well as anybody, this is not the Colts situation at quarterback where you have Anthony Richardson, who is Anthony Richardson, and then you have Joe Flacco. They couldn't be more polar opposites. So preparing for one is definitely not preparing for the other. Cooper Rush and Trey Lance, you know, Trey got in the game the other day for a little bit. They're not exactly the same. So does preparation, how is preparation different when you face a team like that? Because for the Colts, it's almost like 2 different game plans with 2 different quarterbacks in some sense. But how is it for like Cooper Rush and Trey Lance?
Yeah. No, it's a good question, Johnny. I think when you go back, the preseason is a really a good, starting point. Yeah. Trey played a bunch in the preseason. He had 113, 100. He had a number of attempts. Yeah. So you can watch him play in this offense. And you go back and look at last year, Cooper played in 6 games or whatever it was, or a handful of games. Yeah. And then he played the other day, in a game on Sunday. So you're kind of looking at everything, kind of having an understanding, all right, what's a base offense? What are they doing? Are they doing anything different when one quarterback is in relative to the others? And then it's just understanding the strengths and weaknesses of those players. Trey is a little bit more athletic than Cooper, and maybe there's some things that he does a little bit different than Coop. So if he plays, maybe there'll be a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that. So it goes back to just understanding the personnel, understanding their strengths or weaknesses, and when they're in the game, are they doing anything different offensively, schematically, with how they want to play.
Third consecutive primetime game, 4th of the season so far, Nick. And you look at the situation coming off that game against the Jets, team came out firing against the Lions in the first half. Now, what about having the extra day for this? And it affects everything in the organization, like we said previously with these primetime games.
Yeah, it's twofold. So you kind of get an extra day, but then it's going to shorten a week, the following week against Tennessee. So maybe you try to get a little bit ahead. in anticipation of having a short week. We play Monday night, get back 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is. Tuesday's probably an off day, and then you're kicking into gear for that. So whatever the situation is, DR does a good job of just putting a schedule together, making sure the players understand what the schedule is, kind of have an extra day of recovery and or preparation this week. Everything just gets kind of moved back a day or up a day, however you want to look at it. So whatever the schedule is, you kind of know what it's going to be ahead of time. But, we have enough experience here over this season dealing with, say, a non-traditional schedule, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Nick, you talked about Micah Parsons maybe being 3 players in one. He's at Penn State. He plays more off the ball position, and he kind of gradually has become a full-time defensive end, but he still has an opportunity to move around and play different positions. How problematic is it for, I say problematic, but just the fact that you have to be aware of where he is and how that changes maybe the blocking scheme this week?
No, it's problematic. So, because he's not really in the same spot. So he's kind of transitioned from playing off the ball to being a on the line of scrimmage player. I mean, he's as good of a defensive end or outside linebacker
right.
or rush player as in the league. But when you go back to Penn State, to your point, he was off the ball.
Yeah.
But he's just very unique. The way he's athletic, leverage, strength, power, quickness, speed. And he just presents a lot of problems. So you have to have an awareness of where he is, understanding he's probably not going to be in the same spot, but just you got to make sure you take care of him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be a long day. I mean, anybody that has, what did he have, over 100 pressures last year or something ridiculous? So you just better make sure you know where he is.
Yeah.
Nick, earlier this season, team won 3 in a row. We were talking about the positive attitude and everything that the players and the organization has really with Coach Ryans and you. And we talked to D'Amico Ryans this week and talked about a tough time with back-to-back losses and all that, and he said it's not about getting through it, it's about growing through it. And I thought that was really good, that you have to use this as not necessarily a positive, but use it as a growth opportunity to get better.
Every week, every situation is opportunity for improvement. So you just have to evaluate your team. Where are we? Honestly, the attitude and the approach isn't any different. You're just the big thing is just putting ourselves in a position where we got a chance to win a football game. So it's all about the work. It's all about the preparation. It's all about the mindset. There's nothing we can do about what's happened in the past. It's all we can do is control what's in front of us. So DR does a great job of having a pulse of the team, understanding what's needed, the message that's required. So couldn't agree more with his idea and his thought about what we're trying to do. And it's all about improvement. This time of the year, everybody's played 9, 10 games, whatever it is. So the teams that it can improve from here moving forward are probably going to be the teams that are best positioned for whatever's in front of you. And if you don't, then ultimately you earn what you earn.
Okay, I have to ask about rookies, and Mark stole my rookie DB question, so I'm going to ask you about 2 rookies. But on the Cowboys side, Tyler Guyton and Beebe. And Beebe looks like a big brick is what he looks like playing center. What have been your thoughts about the way those 2 rookies have played for Dallas?
Yeah, no, they've done a good job. I mean, Guyton's starting at left tackle, which is probably the hardest position to play on the offensive line, but big, long, athletic player, can stay in front and play, a number of people. And Beebe is kind of transitioned because here's a guy who played tackle, then he worked at guard at the Senior Bowl. Now he's playing center. So he's done a good job. Big body inside. Looks like he's got good playing strength, smart player. Has an understanding. So they've kind of taken what are our 5 best players and kind of put them and deployed them accordingly, including Tyler Smith at left guard. So he played left tackle. So the combination of him at left guard, Guyton at left tackle. Zach has been the mainstay, like we talked about, at right guard, and then Steele. So the right side has kind of been in place, kind of had to make some modifications and changes. And then inserting Beebe there at center. So both of those players have done a really good job, and they've really been there from day one.
Yep.
Nick, you've been in so many big games, big seasons, and I know once we get on the field, it's all about the X's and the O's and the players and everything. But when we say Dallas, what does that mean to you, Dallas? Like hearkening back to your youth maybe and early days in football.
Yeah. I mean, everybody associates the Cowboys being America's team, and I'm sure I'm not going to make any friends here in Houston now, but the Cowboys were actually like my favorite team growing up. So I remember watching the game, the championship game, in my parents' bedroom. We had our kind of main bedroom growing up, or our main living room, and then I was in my parents' bedroom watching the San Francisco-Dallas game. So anytime the Cowboys were on, Danny White, Everson Walls, and when you go look at some of the players who have had a significant impact on a game, Coach Landry and his imprint. So unfortunately, I was a Cowboys fan growing up, so I'm not a Cowboys fan anymore. But
that's what matters most. That's what matters most.
Right now is what matters most, no doubt. And it's a Monday night game. And Mark and I talk about this all the time. Growing up, Monday night was the night. There was no Sunday night football for a long time. It was Monday night. That was the night everybody got a chance to see you play. So Monday night for me always kind of triggers as something a little different, even than Sunday night. Does it kind of feel the same way for you, Nick, in a sense that you talked about that game? That was when Monday night was big back in the 80s.
Well, it's unique. It's the only game. So everybody's watching. So you have a bunch of eyeballs, to your point. So growing up, you're always trying to grab a few extra minutes because normally when you're younger, you should be in bed.
Yeah, right,
but when the game is on, you're probably trying to sneak a few extra winks, which was what I was doing.
East Coast time, that was late Monday night.
East Coast is terrible.
It's exactly. But Monday night is kind of its own entity now. I mean, the league has kind of evolved where, there's almost a game every day. It seems.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting there.
Yeah.
But, Monday night is always held a special place in a lot of people's hearts. So it's kind of cool to see that continue. But honestly, it's different because it's the only team, or the only two teams that are playing that particular day.
When you're at the NFL annual meeting, otherwise known as the owners' meetings in March, do they talk about these things like, hey, Tuesday's open, maybe? They've got Maction.
That's coming, Mark. Don't worry.
owns
No, Maction
Tuesdays.
is taking place right now. So I've been actually
it's Maction time.
watching Maction. So there's like 4 people in the stands, but you're still watching football.
It's a TV show.
Exactly
It's a
right.
good TV
exactly
show.
right.
Nick, thanks a lot. Good luck.
Thanks, fellas.